Hello, and welcome to Character Class. And today I'd like to take a closer look at time. That's right, we're on the last sphere of my closer look series at the Mage Spheres, and time is one of those spheres that can be uh, very interesting, but also highly abusable with some players. So STs be warned, you're going to want to take some time right off the bat. Haha, time, take some time. Oh, I didn't even mean to make that pun. Uh, but you're going to want to take some time to definitely read through the section on time and get an idea of what it can do and what you want to allow it to do. Because time magic is all about the manipulation of time itself, and as such, it can do a lot of things. Um, One of the things it says is that a strong understanding of metaphysical time is useful in conjunctional effects. Much like correspondence, while control of space grants a greater range and sensitivity of effects, time magic allows the mage to hang effects until some future time, dilate their duration, or change their rates of manifestation. So with time magic, you can use it in conjunction with other magic to basically hang a defensive shield where that spell has already been cast. It's just waiting for the trigger, waiting for a certain time to take effect. Um, you can dilate the duration. So you can roll an effect with magic and use time in conjunction with it to dial up that dilation or dial up the duration to make it last longer than it would normally, which you're technically making it last the same amount, but you're making the time that it lasts be longer or progress slower. So you've got more bang for your buck, um, as well as change the rates of their manifestation. So how fast something comes into being. Curiously, once a mage manipulates time in a subjective fashion, it's progressively harder to rework the manipulation. If a mage stretches out a particular few seconds, for instance, she may gain time to perform responsive actions at her convenience, but further time manipulating magic must contend with the fact that she's already warped her perception of that time. Thus, once a mage has twisted a particular bit of time, she must overcome the momentum of her own effects to change it further. So working with time can be very, very complicated. Be warned, both players and storytellers. Um, Once you have manipulated a section of time, if a mage wants to manipulate it again, they need to overcome their own successes in order to make any effect last. So let's say, for example, you do a roll, you put your all into it, you get 10 successes on manipulating a section of time. If you then wanted to manipulate that section of time again, you would have to score, you would have a threshold of 10 successes to get past before you could even begin to start affecting it. So you'd need those 10 successes simply to allow, well, you'd actually need 11 successes, 10 to get through it, then one success to actually create a new manipulation within that time frame. And then you'd need more, depending on what you want it to do, to fuel what you want it, to put it into successes and effect and duration. So time magic can be difficult. Just letting you know that. Now, it also mentions that masters of time often carry a strong sense of deja vu with them. People around the mage find time itself fuzzed out. The mage may well manifest sudden, unconscious shifts in time, causing a flower to bloom or a book to gather dust. So the stronger your manipulation of time becomes, uh, the more time starts to bend a little around you. Again, very difficult. Level 1 time is time sense. Naturally, sensory magic. As might be expected, Mage's first initiation into the mysteries of time is an awareness of time's flow. Learns to discern subjective time, keep accurate track of her own temporal position, notice anomalies and alterations in time, and track effects through their temporal wake, the disturbance that all things leave in the flow of time. Most time magic leaves some sort of disturbance that's noticeable to a mage who knows what to look for. Although an initiate can't really do anything about it, a mage can at least tell when time magic is at work and may well get the heck out of there. Natural phenomena sometimes cause odd time distortions too. These are apparent to a trained mage. So, combined with other spheres, the basics of time magic lets the mage determine whether a particular pattern has been affected affected unnaturally by time, and how it has been changed as a result. Furthermore, the mage gives better accuracy in using pre-existing time distortions in conjunction with other magic. So you've got the time effects for level 1 is perfect time. Although mind magic can provide an accurate internal count and chronometer, only time magic can sense and correct for distortions in subjective time. Some virtual adept self-adjusting computer clocks to Akashic internalizations and verbena biorhythms. The mage learns techniques to feel the flow of time with incredible accuracy and to automatically adjust for jumps and skips in the time stream. If the mage is flattened with unusual time effects from adversaries or strange umbral spaces, she at least has a chance to adjust and adapt. Better still, the mage can keep absolute track of her own effects and timing, easily judging subjective time as necessary to put a precise duration or spin on any action. So level 1 perfect time can be handy if you have it running and you're doing something that requires heavily on precise timing, because you've got that perfect time. You know exactly when to let go of a ball, or when to fire a gun, or when to input a code to interrupt someone. You've got this perfect sense of time about you. So as long as you know your situation, you can react accordingly and do it well. There's also time sense, which is, of course, you get to sense your time magic. Any sort of shifting or disturbances in time can be sensed via time sense. We have time sight is level 2. Although both past and future are hypothetically nothing but possibilities, it's possible to scry through time itself to look at the probabilities that tie most closely to the direction of the magician's own timeline. The mage can cast her perceptions into the past or future, gather information from other times. The process is not always accurate. The future is mutable, and some say the past too changes as people's memories and beliefs of it change. Interesting. The closer the mage looks to her current present time, the more accurate the vision. Distant times and places may be inaccurate, fuzzy, and difficult to comprehend. Some places and times are even protected against such scrying by powerful wards or by natural phenomenon that bend the course of time itself. Simple pre- and retrocognitive effects allow a mage to look into the past or future at her current location. The mage can watch time as if viewing it directly, pausing to skip to different points or glossing over areas to speed onto others. So you can build wards with level 2, creating a great deal of temporal static to blot out time senses, in the same way that correspondence can be used to repel distant scrying. In conjunction with other spheres, time senses let the mage examine patterns of the past and future, determine the course of fate, or even read the thoughts of people in different eras. So you've got divinations, which are your scrying bowls and speaking mirrors in different ways to, again, see the past and the present. And there is time wards, which is, again, you muddy the waters, you create temporal static, you prevent people from looking on you in a place, in a time. So if anyone tried to use time magic to scry back to what you were doing at a certain point, all they would get is static. unless they overcame your time wards. So level 2 is fairly simple, as is level 1. Level 3, however, is time manipulation. By extending personalized perceptions over an area of time, the mage can alter the apparent flow of time at a site. Theories vary over whether this is true manipulation of the time stream or just an extension of subjective time properties. But the fact is that such manipulations can create some very unusual and powerful effects. By dilating or contracting time, the mage can alter the rate at which things happen in comparison to the normal world. A flow of water could be made to trickle like molasses, a bullet could be slowed to visible speeds, or a running man could seem to whiz by with incredible velocity. The subjective time of the target isn't changed. The running man feels himself moving as if at a normal speed, while the world around him seems to be moving very slowly. The bullet appears to onlookers to move slowly, but it hits with just as much force. So, while you can manipulate time, if you are just manipulating time, you're not manipulating anything else. Just the speed just the speed at which time is moving for the object you have manipulated. A mage wrapped in dilated or contracted time can easily cocoon himself in a protective layer that insulates himself from the outside world, effectively freezing himself in time, or accelerate to the point of performing numerous physical tasks in a few seconds. Different mages have different ways of approaching this undertaking, but it's still a potent power. With a bit of finesse, a mage can rewind or loop time as well. Doing so is very difficult, tends to draw down a lot of paradox because vulgar. So you've got distort time and time warp. So you generate a field of slow or fast time. Mages cause localized distortions that let people or objects react at different rates than normal. A bubble of fast time would contain a person who could move 2 or 3 times faster than normal, for instance, while slow time could enfold a hurled weapon, cause it to seem to float through the air in a leisurely fashion. The subjects still experience an undistorted sense of subjective time, so the fast man would feel as if he's moving at normal speed, while the world around him is slow, and the hurled weapon would retain its deadly momentum, but could easily be grabbed by the handle. Every 2 successes scored causes the bubble to accelerate or decelerate time by 1 factor. Thus, 2 successes would allow a mage to double her physical speed, taking 2 actions in a single turn. Now, the thing about that particular one, distort time, is that it has been used in the past in a campaign that I have run by one of my players, and I've allowed it because it was cool, it was neat. But it's something out there that not all STs will want to allow in their game, so I thought I would bring it up and mention it. Level 3 time was used to create an area which had faster than normal time. It was done ritually, so as I have it in my particular campaign when I was running my mage campaign, if you are doing magic ritually, it takes however many hours per roll, depending on what level of magic you're using. And the successes are translated more in terms of days and weeks and months rather than turns. Normal magic is always done by turns, which is considered combat magic, than ritual magic, which is done for a lot longer. And he had an area of his sanctum set up in a circle where time was moving like super fast inside as compared to outside. So he could go inside this circle and he could learn, basically study, learn, and train with other people inside this circle for weeks and months to his perception, and it would only be a few hours in the normal world, which allowed his character and other characters taking advantage of this to boost up their abilities a lot faster than they would have normally. Now, this is not the sort of thing that um, all storytellers will allow. Some storytellers will basically say you can only create an area that can go X amount of times faster than normal. You cannot have anything go faster than that because of time. Uh, some people put hard limits on this sort of thing. Some people say you can't do that at all. You can only do it in areas of turns rather than ritually casting it. It's all up to the ST, but it's something to be aware of. The other one is time warp, which is basically rewinding time or putting time into a loop or possibly even fast forwarding time, depending on how you want to do it. It is the one that lets you loop an area. You can put a section of time into a loop so that once you hit the end of the loop, it restarts. And you're just going constantly back and forth, like Groundhog Day. And this is where things get complicated. As a storyteller, it can be difficult enough to keep track of what's all going on in one timeline. Having to try and keep track of it over multiple timelines because somebody's messing around with time magic can make things a lot more difficult. Again, it's up to the ST as to what they want to allow because it's the storyteller's game. As for players, it's something to think about and something to possibly look into, or maybe if this sounds more complicated than you want to deal with, maybe not look into it. It's up to you. What else do we have? We have time determinism. Instead of stretching or compressing time, the adaptive time can literally stop time or drop something into a loop that only releases at a specified time. Magic can be made to wait in place, as can other patterns. The mage can cast suspension over a target so that it is literally unaffected by the passage of time, or build specially keyed effects that hold off until certain events come to pass. The mage can even freeze a target outside of the time stream, leaving it trapped and unaffected by the outside world, while it experiences nothing more than the blink of an eye. Such powerful magic is often vulgar, of course. A time-halting effect, combined with a pattern sphere, can generate a keyed pause, something that doesn't happen until a specific person, creature, or item comes into the right position. With entropy, a bit of time magic can create an effect that does not happen until a certain crux of destiny or improbability comes to pass. A princess can be put to sleep until her predestined true love arrives, or a dying subject can be placed into cryogenic suspension while doctors search for a cure for his condition. Entire family lines or places of power can have magical effects granted that wait until they're signaled for activation. Though the use and rigors of paradox slowly erode such effects until they're gone. You got contingent effect. You place a hold on a magical effect. The mage turns it into a contingency, a spell that doesn't go off until some specified condition comes to pass. Doing so requires the use of other spheres. So while time wards can be used to create hanging effects, where it is literally, or not time wards. Which one's the hanging effect? I think it's number 2. Where's the time 3? Is it time 3 that's the hanging effect? I was looking at it here earlier. I can't quite tell. I apologize for this. But there's one that lets you hang magic. And I don't know exactly which one. Yes. Future time. Okay. Yeah. But anyways, as I was saying, uh, contingent effect lets you create a hanging effect that works when a certain thing happens. So you could have it that somebody is attacking you and it will pop a shield up. And that shield will just hang there and wait until somebody attacks you. Then it will go off and stop an attack. There's also a programmed event, which is another effect. The mage stop times in a localized field and sets a time when it shall resume. Say she lifts a cup from a table and drops it. By freezing time around the cup for a scene, she causes the cup to hang in midair until the scene ends. At that time, the cup falls and breaks. When events in physical reality are frozen for extended periods, paradox forces usually erode the magic and free the events from stop time prematurely. Also, if someone were to grab the cup, static reality would reassert itself and the magic field would disperse. So, how you want to do it is up to you, but higher levels of time will always incur paradox because you are literally going against time itself. And higher levels of anything causes paradox. What else do we got? But time determinism is the one that basically lets you stop time and step outside of time, I think, as well. Time halting effect? No. But you can stop time and loop it with level 4. So you can't loop time before that, but you can at level 4. Level 5 is time travel and time immunity. With time travel, you can literally go to other points in time. And time immunity lets you immunize yourself to the effects of time. You can essentially evade the passage of time in the rest of the world. To her, the world is a frozen plateau, one of which she may move about freely without ever interacting with her surroundings. The mage would wander about and perhaps pull other objects or people into her pocket of immunity just long enough to use them, then continue on her way. To the outsider, such events would seem to happen instantaneously without any apparent impetus, as the mage accomplishes several things seconds. Between seconds. Naturally, masters of time tread with great caution. Things wait in the time stream, perhaps more incomprehensible than even spirits that guard the distant reaches of the universe. Mages who meddle too much with time have a disturbing tendency to disappear, sometimes replaced by beings that masquerade in their place, other times arriving with full knowledge of a horrific fate that awaits them in some unavoidable time. Travelers can be pulled out of the time stream by other master level time magic in eras where they did not plan to go, and there are barriers in time itself, places where even mages cannot see or dive. So level 5, you've got sidestep time. Instead of halting time in a small area, the mage simply steps laterally to the current of time, effectively removing herself from the evolution of the world. This is the one that lets you move around. Everything else is completely stopped. So it's kind of like the scene from the book of what is it? The sequel to John Dies at the End. This book is full of spiders, where time gets stopped, and John is just wandering around in this world of stop time, which is kind of neat. Sidestep time. That's what that lets you do. It lets you literally step outside of time. And then time travel. The mage simply vanishes from one point in the time stream and reappears somewhere else. Although scientists would argue that a mage doing so would wind up in the void of space, the Earth having moved far from its position in the time jumped, the mage's pattern obeys metaphysical laws, so the mage reappears in the same place from which she left. The successes scored indicate how far the mage can travel through time and how many people she can bring along. It, however, generates significant temporal disturbances. If the mage leaves an anchor point in her present, she can pull back on that thread and return to the time she left. Otherwise, the trip is one way. Likewise, the mage can try to send a subject into the future, but he may discover that the individual has taken steps in that later future to find the mage and deal with him. Dun dun dun. Trips to the future tend to be fairly easy but unpredictable. The mage simply scries an appropriate time or even jumps blind and reappears in some future point. Past travel is much more difficult and dangerous, primarily because the weight of memory causes reality to assert itself against the mage directly. Past travelers tend to vanish into the time stream, destroyed by paradox or other forces, and never seem to make significant changes to the timeline. Not that anyone would remember, though. Some mages maintain that a sort of time police group prevents other mages from traveling too far through time, or from manipulating the time stream overtly. Interesting. So time travel is possible with level 5 time, but since you're manipulating in time and you're trying to go either back or forward, you can go forward pretty good, but since you're traveling to the future, somebody in the future might be aware that you're coming and have plans to stop you. And if you're going back to the past, you might be trying to go back too far and not be able to overcome the successes and get destroyed in the process. So stepping out of time and time travel and stopping time and relooping time, the level 4 and 5 effects, they're pretty powerful and potent. You can do some awesome stuff with this. But the price is the thing. Now, as myself, as a storyteller, I did allow, as I said, I did allow the fact that we had a time circle created by a player that was giving immense benefits. Yes, I allowed it to happen. However, I knew going in that the player in particular would probably try to set up something like that. And I had set up in advance in my mind the fact that manipulations of time have a side effect. The more manipulations of time you do, the more you're in manipulated time. It sort of starts building up a temporal entropy around your soul, which can cause problems. So it's one of the things that I would definitely urge for storytellers and players to think about if you're going to delve into time magic at all, especially storytellers. Think about the consequences of high-level magic. Time magic in particular, but all high-level magic. Because magic is one of the things in Mage that is all about consequences. You can do things, absolutely, but you will have to pay the price. Magic always comes at a price. So, thank you all so much for watching. This has been my wonderful little series on taking a closer look at the spheres. I hope I have helped some people. I hope I've given some people a little bit of a better understanding of the magic in particular in the mage spheres. There's so much that can be done with mage that is really only limited to your imagination. So thank you all for watching. If you like what I'm doing, please give that like button a tap. Give that subscribe button a tap as well if you haven't already, so you can be kept apprised of when I do new videos. And throw a comment in the comment section. What is your fun times with time? What do you like to do with time magic? I once had a character who only had up to level 2 time magic, but she used it to scry into the future and to find trouble that was going to happen, and then she'd go off and be a superhero, basically, and save the day. Thus, always being there in the nick of time. She saw nothing wrong with that, but there were other mages that were a little bit, you're messing with something that you shouldn't be messing with. So fun little things like that. What sort of things do you guys like to do with time magic? Throw a comment in the comment section. Let me know. I'd love to get a discussion going with some people. And until next time, you all keep rolling, keep casting your magic, and I'll see you next time.